Hi, I'm James McGuire, and today we're talking about how to build a career in data science. To discuss that, I'm joined by one of the most renowned experts in the field. With me is Kirk Borne, principal data scientist at Booz Allen Hamilton. Kirk, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here, James. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Absolutely, and I was, looking at all the amazing, awards and honors and publications you've done. It's astounding, and among them all, there's pages. You actually have a PhD in astrophysics from Caltech.
Yes, that's right.
I don't even know what astrophysics is, for goodness sakes. I'm gonna have to look that up on Wikipedia later on. It's like that sounds like a very complicated subject that you've mastered. So I'm impressed.
Well, it's a combination of a lot of things. Physics, math, modeling, simulation, computing,
Mhm.
and data science is all of those things. So
Yeah. Speaking of data scientists, it seems to me, and I hear this from so many people, that data scientists and people who know the skill of data analytics are really, really, really in demand these days. They command, the people who are pros really command high salaries, and someone with that kind of if that's on their resume, they don't go unemployed for very long. Is that your sense? Like this is a super hot field at this point?
yeah, it's been that way for quite a while now. It's really incredible.
It really is, and it seems like I think businesses today realize that they can't operate on a hunch anymore. They need to be looking at the metrics. So it's like, the idea you're going to compete without looking at the metrics and being driven by the metrics is impossible. And so, of course, they need a team, if not one or several data scientists on board.
Right, right,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
So I want to thank everyone who's viewing and watching and listening, and thank you so much for showing up. And also, I want to let you know that we really, really appreciate your comments and questions. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Please click that, ask your question. We may not be able to get to them all, but please ask it. You don't even need to wait until the end. So we welcome your comments. So data scientists, Kirk, I'd like to ask you, in terms of getting started with a career, is it necessary that you would need a four-year college degree? Are there other routes besides having the classic traditional college degree to get started in a career in data science?
No, not really. You don't need that actually.
Hmm.
Um, I think I have to focus on sort of a two-stage process here. The first
Hmm.
step is just getting your foot in the door, which starts by just learning the skills of data science. You know,
Right.
the coding, the algorithms, the techniques, the methods, the
Hmm.
process,
Hmm.
all these things. But if you're really going to have a long-standing career, I always say that a degree gives you that sort of extra career padding. That
Hmm.
is when organizations look to promote people, maybe to leadership positions or whatever. They're going to. It's not just that you happen to know some coding skills. There's a lot more that goes into that, and
Hmm.
that comes with sort of the things you learn in formal education programs, which are outside of the sciences, right? I mean, I got a degree in physics and astrophysics and that a lot of math, but some of the courses I think that I learned my most critical thinking skills in were not those courses. I mean,
Oh, okay.
and okay, yeah, I learned a lot of critical thinking in physics courses, yes, but a lot, but thinking about other things. I mean, you think about the courses in literature and history and things like
Hmm.
that. I mean, there's a
Hmm.
lot of things that you learn in terms of how do you approach a subject, how do you learn a subject, how do you interact with other people and other
Hmm.
perspectives, and all these kind of things that come with a broader education.
Hmm.
And then people say, well, do I need a bachelor's, a master's, or a PhD? I say the sweet spot there is the master's degree, actually.
Okay.
I mean, the bachelor's degree is sort of a basic principles type of degree that is you learn sort of like the basic things. It's not
Hmm.
quite the same as sort of the professional skills that go with knowing those things.
Right.
The PhD is a research degree. Okay, so if you want to be a research scientist, that is where you want to go. But most data scientists aren't going to be research scientists, and by that I mean you're actually publishing papers in research journals, peer-reviewed journals, peer-reviewed conferences,
Hmm.
probably at an academic institution trying to get tenure as a
Right.
professor. So I was a
Right.
professor at the university, and it's all about the publications, right?
Totally.
Uh,
Yep.
but if you want to have a successful data science analytics career, even though it's a young field, I'd say having a master's degree teaches you those professional skills of communication, leadership,
Mhm.
collaboration. The things that sort of like go sort of beyond just the academic stuff you learn in bachelor's and beyond and different from the research things you learn in a PhD program.
Right.
So I say, yeah, you can get into this field right away without a degree, but for the long-term career success, think about the collegiate education as well.
Interesting. Okay. So that definitely makes sense. I guess what I'm hearing is that there are probably there's some certification programs out there where you get certified in a certain analytics software, or probably a basic data science certification. So those might get your foot in the door. In fact, these days they probably would get your foot in the door.
They absolutely will. They absolutely
Okay.
will. I mean,
Yeah.
the number of jobs opening is far in excess of the number of people available.
Right.
Once
Is
you
there?
certified in any of those things, you're going to get a job. And I'm just talking about, yeah, you got that job, but now if you want to advance in it or have a long-term career progression.
Gotcha.
I mean, I know a number of data scientists who gone on to become founders of companies. So so they're managing a company now. So a master's in business analytics is a pretty impressive thing to have under your belt as well, because then that business analytics gives you both the analytics and the business experience.
That person is going to get a lot of phone calls from employers to be sure.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, you can start your own company because you learned about finance and all those other things.
Mm-hmm. So, in terms of the certifications, and it's probably too big a question because there's so many out there. But are there a couple that you happen to like, or is it just there's several that are good?
I don't want to name too many specific names.
Yeah, I understand that.
I'm actually on the board on a couple places, and I don't want to be here like promoting something that I'm.
Yeah, totally understand. Yeah.
But I do want to say, yes, there are certification programs. One of them is like this that Informs, which is a professional society.
Mm-hmm.
They have the Certified Analytics Professional, the CAP certification.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also lots of boot camps. So boot camps can teach you skills like in 12 weeks or 16 weeks that will get you the job.
Interesting.
And they're fairly intensive. There's also there's a lot of master's degree programs that are basically 11-month programs. So you get the full master's degree, but it's a full-time job. I mean, you can't have a job or a life pretty much for 11 months.
Right.
Because a full master's degree is 30 college credits, plus the capstone projects and all the research and all the other things that you do in a master's program. So normally those master's programs, a person will take 2 to 3 years to complete them. And
right.
And master's programs different from certifications in that any college degree program requires state accreditation, and they have to meet certain minimum standards like 30 credit hours, certain number of courses, and whereas a boot camp, you just take a boot camp in Python, and you get their Python certification and go get a Python job. I mean, there's no sort of state university regulation over a boot camp.
Right. Let's look at some of the possible career tracks, if you think of it that way. I'm not sure. So I think about, what are some of the most meaningful and or lucrative career tracks? And I'm thinking, I was talking to an executive several weeks back, and he said to me that there are AI engineers, which is somewhat different from simply being a data scientist, but as an example, there are AI engineers, experienced ones that also know business. There's one in particular, he's actually earning $1 million a year with the AI specialty. Are there certain career tracks like, oh yes, this is business analytics, this is retail such and such, or are there certain specific career tracks you think are really attractive and particularly needed, or you don't think of it that way?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Excuse me. I remember sort of when this data science revolution started like 7-8 years ago, 2012 timeframe. There was quite a burst of activity around this for several reasons we can go into. But I remember there was a job description that I saw that it required a lot of sort of engineering skills, like building the data system and building the deploying and building out the whole machine learning modeling apparatus of the organization. So it wasn't just coding, it wasn't just being a data scientist where you play with the data and you hypothesize what models work best and you tweak the models. It's actually building the thing and putting it into production and keeping it in production for a very, very large customer base. It was a very large e-commerce company, very, very large e-commerce company that was advertising this position. A lot of job requirements. And I was sort of reading this ad that I got to the bottom and it said salary. And at the bottom of the job ad, after the word salary, it said anything you want.
So in other words, I'm going to guess it's a fairly lucrative job, and you can like
Yeah.
work in your pajamas if you want to. And
Well, I tell you, at the time I read that job description, I said to myself, I only know one person in the world who satisfied that job description.
right, so
And that, and
they're
that,
rare
and
creatures.
yeah, and that guy, at that time, he was the director of analytics at eBay. He subsequently became the chief technology officer for a big company. Then after that, he became the CEO of that big company.
Oh
So yeah,
wow,
this
okay,
this
yeah.
guy had the skill to do that job. So anyway,
It sounds like it.
I think in terms of specific jobs, the AI engineer, machine learning engineer, cloud engineer,
Mhm.
they surpass data scientists in terms of lucrative sort of salary. And the
Hmm.
reason I say that is because these are the people who actually have to build it out, deploy it, put it into production, keep it running, right? Data
Right,
scientists are also well paid, and you have a really nice, satisfying job as a data scientist. But
right.
most of the time, you're building models, playing with data, tweaking with data, exploring data, finding the right algorithms, and that's fine, that's great, and that's sort of what gets the sort of the foot in the door
Right.
towards business value creation from the data, which is really what my message always is focus on the business value creation.
Right.
But the value that's created comes when it's deployed, put into production, and maintained. And that's where the AI engineer, machine learning engineer, cloud engineer is going to be the person or team of people who is
Hmm.
going to accomplish that. So everyone has a value in the chain, but that engineer who's going to deploy, build, and keep it in production is the one who can say, "I'll take any salary I want."
Right, right. Well, I'm going to think that in the years ahead, there's going to be a lot of blurring between those job titles. Like, it may be very hard to be, say, an AI engineer without having a foundation as a data scientist in the first place. I mean, yeah, are they still going to be siloed like that? It's going to be sort of melded.
I
What's your
think
guess on that?
no, I think they're still going to be different
Yeah.
because the
Okay.
AI engineer. I mean, maybe not. I mean, maybe right now I think there's more blurring now because people don't even know what title to put on any job. I mean,
Right.
literally right now, people don't know what to put. I mean, are you a data analytics practitioner? Are you a data I got into a big discussion with someone last week. Aren't you just a data analyst? And I said, so I described all the things that a scientist does, which is infer from data. You develop a hypothesis, you design an experiment to test the hypothesis.
Hmm.
You run the experiment, collect data, then you verify or refine your hypothesis. That's a scientific process. It's not just
Right.
analyzing data. And I think we agreed to disagree because
Mhm.
he said that's what I do as a data analyst. And I said, well, you're really a data scientist anyway.
Yeah, no,
So
and yeah, we don't even
so
need to get into that kind of work. There was someone else I was talking about, I'm a business intelligence expert. Well, I'm a data analytics expert. Like, oh, wait, I thought they were the same thing. Or there are differences. You can look up differences, but
yeah.
it's a lot of blurry lines there.
Yeah, I don't want to get into vocabulary wars with people, but I do
Right.
think in the future there will be finally a clearer demarcation between these things we're talking about because it really will matter. Then right now people are just trying to figure out what it is we're doing.
Hmm.
But an AI engineer or ML machine learning engineer, I put those people in the category again of the person who has to build out the system and keep it running
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and and make it scalable. I mean, if you're a Google of the world, right, you get a billion searches per minute or something, right?
Right.
I mean, I
Right.
can't build a website that can maintain more than a couple searches
Right. Right.
per day or something. They got server farms that fill entire cities practically.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
if you're going to build that, you have to have a way more capability than your traditional data scientist.
Hmm.
But nevertheless, people are being hired as AI engineers and machine learning engineers because they're being hired to do a data scientist's job, which is to explore the data and build models from the data. And the job title doesn't really match what
Right.
I would call the data scientist job, and vice versa. There are data scientists out there. I know, for example, people like, I happen to know through social media, people like chief data scientists at Facebook and things like that. I don't know them personally, but I know through my social channels.
Right.
And this guy, I mean, he's called a chief data scientist, but this guy's like building the entire system
Hands on.
for a major social network site.
Right.
That's an engineer. I mean, yeah, call him what you want, but this guy is way more valuable than your traditional data scientist.
Right. Right. I totally get you on that.